opposing everything. I mean,
Well, welcome everybody. My name is Bob Huttinga. Some of you I know from a long time ago, and some not so long ago, and some I don't know at all. So we are going to record this, and we won't record anybody's face, so it might get the back of your head, but hope that you're all okay with that. So welcome. We call this the School of Happiness, and the whole concept behind that is we want to make things better. So let's start with a few housekeeping things. There's questions. As the questions come up, please ask them. If it's something really personal, I can talk to you at the end, but most of the time we can clear that up, and other people might have the same questions. Please, if you have a cell phone, please turn it to an off or a buzz position if you would. Come on in, folks. And there's some water up front if anybody needs a drink of water. We have a cooler up front, so you're welcome to do that. So let's just go around the room here, just say your first name, and if you would, why you're here. What's your interest in this process? You don't have to give a big dissertation, but just what's the most important reason? And if you do decide to participate in this program, that's one of the things that we're going to work with. What's the most important reason for doing this? So we're going to start over here with this young man.
Rich and curiosity mostly to see exactly how this works and
Good.
See whether or not it's for us.
Okay, good.
I'm Roxanne, and I'm interested in the virtual band compared to the actual live band.
Oh, okay, okay. We'll talk about that a little bit. So, very good.
oh, my turn. I'm Cheryl. I guess mostly because my issue is I'm one of those binge eaters, and I would like to control that or
Stop
stop
doing
that.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And my name is Tabitha, and I am an emotional eater / binge eater, and I'm getting to the point where, because of my age, it's just getting worse. I can't seem to maintain a healthy weight now, so.
Okay, good. Excellent.
I'm Bob, and I need to control my weight.
Okay. Health issues?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You don't have to say what they are, but many of us
I got a
experience
heart
those
condition,
things. So.
and I'm a diabetic.
Okay. Yeah, we've had really good results with that. We've had a few people. One of the gals that works for us who was type 2 diabetic, who's now off of all her medicines. And it's pretty impressive, down about 30 pounds. And yes.
I'm Deb, and I need to lose weight to take care of some pain issues.
Okay. Mobility and pain is often an issue when you're carrying around my son-in-law, he's down 84 pounds, and he is, we were talking about that, and I was carrying a 50-pound bag of salt, and I threw it to him, and he's a big guy, and he grabbed it, and he said, wow, that's what I was carrying around. It's like, yeah. Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
Beverly, and I'm here to see if I can get in some control of my weight.
Oh, okay.
I'm Nancy, and I have probably gained and lost the same 50 pounds about 5 or 6 times in the past 10 years.
A lot of us have been on that yo-yo
Yeah.
elevator.
Need to get control of that.
Okay.
I'm Bruce, and I've always been overweight, but I have diabetes, and I got on insulin about a year ago. I put on about 50 pounds automatically,
Really?
and since then I can't walk very good, and I can't stand up only a couple minutes, and I need to lose that weight.
Got to do something about that, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Tara, and I just want to control my weight.
Okay.
I'm Julie, and I can't use my having children as an excuse of being fat anymore.
Yeah, we like honesty.
Like, I got 2 kids. Well, how old are they? Well, 10 months. That's a little long to be waiting.
But it's better than 17 years.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to curb against. I was an athlete all the way through school, and I still play a lot of sports, but I want to go back to the way I used to be.
Well, you know, it's interesting that over the years, it just sort of creeps up. We had a woman in her last class who's 325 pounds, 110 when she got married, 25. And she said, I never thought, and it just sort of sneaks up on you. So when you're young, and you can prevent a whole lot of problems. So.
I'm Shirley, and I want to see what the difference is between surgical lap band and this lap band. This lap band sounds like a better way to go.
Yeah, that's what I think too. So anyway, okay, so let's begin. My introduction to this process was from a gentleman named Dr. Dave Hillis. Dave is a naturopathic doctor from Muskegon, and I've known Dave a few years. In September, first part of October, something like that, this past year, we were invited to a potluck, and we got there, and I did not recognize him because he had eliminated 55 pounds between March and September. And, hey, what did you do? Well, he had gone to Detroit, and he'd gone through this class of virtual gastric band. Now, I had read about this a couple of years ago and just kind of poo-pooed that, you know, it's like, man, that can't work. But here was a guy who'd done that. And so, on our way home, Barb got on the phone, got on the internet, and it turned out that Sheila Granger, who created this, was going to be in Toronto the next weekend, and she had one opening in her class, and so we went to Toronto, and I took the training to do this. And it's been very, very beneficial for lots and lots of people. So our motto is put your health in your own hands. And the whole concept of this is that most of us know what to do, but we just don't do it. And there's something stuck in our thinking process. And that's the difference. Dr. Dave's had a friend who had a gastric bypass the same time that he started doing the virtual. Dennis is down about 90 pounds now. Dave's down 55, and he's where he wants to be. But Dennis is having all kinds of problems. He's had to go back to surgery, had a bowel obstruction. He looks like hell. I mean, it's not a very good deal. Now, some people go through those surgeries and they do really well, but many have problems, and so I never recommend it to anybody to have that surgery. You're just fooling with Mother Nature too much. A lot of them have absorption issues and those kind of problems.
Have you heard of this new thing they call the sleeve, where they remove most of your stomach?
Well, they
What's your
just take
take
the
on all of
outer,
that?
they take the outer portion of the stomach and then remove it, staple it, put it all back together. And the idea is to make the stomach smaller. But what happens is, and if you know anybody who's had these procedures, and I've had at least a half a dozen, some of them in this class, that have had the gastric band actual surgery, and they all say you learn how to eat around it. And after a while, they just learn how to eat smaller amounts more frequently, eat all the time, and lots of them just stretch everything back out. So the stomach has this ability to expand quite a bit. It's not really very healthy, but those procedures just have lots of issues. Mother Nature never intended for those kind of things to.
Well, we had talked with one doctor that pretty much said that the lap band stuff is all like old hat now, and we don't do that anymore. The new thing is the sleeve thing, and this is because if you remove 90% of the stomach, you just can't put food into something that isn't there, and it just stops you from eating right at the gate, and claims phenomenal success with it.
We did an expo this past weekend down in Grand Rapids, and there were 3 people stopped to our booth that had these procedures, and the one guy was saying he was miserable because he couldn't eat, but he wanted to all the time. He was just starved feeling. The problem is they don't do anything to change the mental part of this. So he still had all these urges to eat. He couldn't eat because he couldn't load his stomach up. He was only about 6 weeks post-op. But there's a guy here in town that had this done about 4 or 5 years ago, and he had lost over 200 pounds. Now he's back up 100 pounds again. And I watched him eat breakfast the other day, and he had this plate of biscuits and gravy that big. So he's stretched it all out.
I actually know 2 people who have had the gastric bypass and have gained all of it back, and then some. I mean, it was completely useless for them.
Because the mental work isn't done. Now, if they would do something like this and then have a procedure, they'd have much more success. But if you can have success with just this, why do the risky procedures? So anyway, let's go on and let's talk about this a little more. So body shape and size, the health issues, mobility issues, energy issues. And it's like John said, you carry this extra 50 pounds of weight around all day long. It really takes a lot of energy. So there's a science called epigenetics. And epigenetics means that we have the ability to modify our DNA based on how we think. When I was in school, we were taught that you got the DNA you got from your parents, and that DNA operated every cell. But what we now know is that the DNA is what is called plastic. It can be turned on and turned off. And this can be done in a variety of ways, but one of the ways that it can be done is through the thought process. And so that's why these kinds of things work, is because we now know that that can happen. Now between age 6 and birth and 6, things happen to us in our lives. And for most of us, positive inputs get put into our empty vault here. And unfortunately, some of us have experiences where there are negative inputs. And so sometimes we end up as adults with an emptiness because we didn't get the right inputs as children. And we eat impulsively, we eat for comfort because we're trying to fill things up. And sometimes with this situation where the program wasn't very good, we're protecting ourselves. And there's lots of women particularly that carry excess body weight to protect themselves. And a patient a few years ago, she was almost 400 pounds. We worked for a couple of years, got her down to about 285. Some guy hit on her in a grocery store, and she went home and started eating, gained 60 pounds in a month. And she had been molested as a child and raped as a teenager, and her weight was her protection. Now, unless you fix that, nothing's going to work. You got to fix that security. So the whole idea is we have things in our past. Now, there's really no need to go dig up all that stuff if you can change the program. So what this program does is it alters the program so that the empty feeling is satisfied sooner, and there's no need to guard all the time. Now, how does this work? Well, let's use a computer as an analogy. Let's say you have a screensaver on your computer, and you've had it there for a year or two, and you want to change it. So you go into Control Panel, you go to Displays, you select a new screensaver, you push Apply, and you go back out, and the new screensaver is there. Now that sounds pretty simplistic, but that's really what happens. We have these operating programs that cause us to have these automatic behaviors. And most of us eat automatically. How many of us eat like this? Most of us don't even think about eating. A lot of us eat on the run, we eat in the car, we eat at our desks, we eat in front of the TV. We look at that meal, it was a beautiful meal, and we hardly remember what it tasted like because we just shovel it in. So part of what we learn here is to eat more mindfully. Slow it down. Eat in your eating places. You don't eat in bed. You don't eat in the car. You don't eat at your desk. You learn to eat in your eating places and enjoy every bite, so that when you're finished with that meal that's gone slower than usual, you feel more satisfied. There's satisfaction chemistry in our brain. They're called satiety chemicals, and it takes 10 or 15 minutes for those to be released by the brain. Now, you can eat a lot of food in 5 or 10 minutes if you're shoveling it in. But if you're eating slowly, you're enjoying that food, then those chemicals kick in and you feel satisfied. As I myself, I used to be 250 pounds. I remember eating and just feeling stuffed, but feeling unsatisfied. And that's where a lot of us are. So this whole concept is to teach us how to feel full faster. Now, if we look at this, there's body signals. All of our experience in our lives is around certain body signals. What happens if you start to feel a little cold? Well, you get a little chill, and you start tucking it in, and you get a sweater, or you put on a jacket, or you turn up the thermostat, but it's just kind of automatic. You get a signal, and you respond. When you feel like you have to go to the bathroom, you feel a little bladder pressure, you can hold it for a while, but you have to respond to that signal. And if you don't, eventually you're going to have an accident. Well, for some reason, our control mechanism for appetite it doesn't quite work right. We can override it. And so a lot of times we have hunger. There's two kinds of hunger: head hunger and real biological hunger. But a lot of times we eat, and instead of stopping when we're comfortable or when we're full, we continue to eat until we're stuffed or bloated and painful. And this actually becomes a habit. So what we're going to do with this program is teach you to stop eating when you're comfortable. Now, why would that make a difference? Well, I'll give you an example. If you reduce your calorie intake 100 calories per day for 1 year, you'll eliminate 10 pounds. Now, that's how it is. You put in extra 100 calories a year, you're going to gain 10 pounds in that year. So 100 calories isn't very much. If you go to McDonald's, one of the Whoppers is 400 or 500 calories. And the French fries, they used to be 150 calories in a bag. Now they're 600. So if you had a half a bag of French fries, and instead of a whole bag, you could eliminate 10 or 20 pounds in a year. It doesn't take much, just a little bit different. So, again, we just eat too much. And when you feel full faster, then you don't eat as much. Now, it's really important to understand this is not a diet. We don't tell you what to eat. There's no calorie counting. You simply don't have the urge to eat as much. You feel full faster, so you don't take seconds, and you don't miss them because you're satisfied. It is also not surgery. And that's really important to understand. Some people think, well, we hypnotize you and then we go in the back room and do surgery. Yeah, there's no dicing and slicing here. This is not a diet. You just eat less, and that's your choice. Now, what happens along the way is people do have a little better selection, and so their intake of food isn't Twinkies and Wonder Bread. It's you're generally healthier. But that's an automatic selection process that you do on your own. So some people don't change, they eat 2 less Cokes or drink 2 less Cokes than they had before. That's a lot of calories just there. Or they quit eating ice cream. There's a lot of calories there. But the problem is that for most of us, we just get driven back to the old behavior. We know what to do. So why hypnosis? Well, hypnosis is actually a normal brain process. How many people here have been hypnotized? Okay, several. Actually, how many people here watch TV? If you watch TV, you've been hypnotized. Television puts us in an alpha brainwave state. Now, the alpha brainwave state is our goal. And every time you go to sleep, every time you drift into sleep, you first enter an alpha brainwave state, then you go into deeper sleep for about an hour and a half. You come back up into this alpha state, you dream for about 10 or 15 minutes, and you go deep asleep again. And all night long, we're in and out of these cycles. So we all have been in this state already. When you daydream, how many people, highway hypnosis, you don't have to raise your hand, but almost everybody has been driving and you get someplace and you go, wow, how did I get here? It's because we're on automatic pilot. Now, a lot of us are on automatic pilot when we eat because we're doing the same thing. So, stand in the shower too long and you're just in that state. So what we think about when we're in those states actually kind of gets programmed in. So it's real important that we pay attention to that as well. So the big question is, will this work for me? Now, I like to use the analogy of a tour bus. We're on a tour, I'm the tour guide, you're on the bus. And if you stay on the bus, this will work for you. This is a very, very exquisite program. I've studied hypnosis for 20 years, and Sheila put this together with some amazing little pieces that it really does work. You just have to be there. So if you can sit in the room, listen to the program, it'll work. The very first class we did, we had a gentleman, he was sitting back there where, is it Rollin?
Yep, Bruce.
Bruce Rollin. Where Bruce is sitting. And he came up to me after we were done and he said, I don't think that worked for me. I don't remember anything we did. I said, well, see what happens. You go home, you come back next week, we'll see what happens. Because he wanted me to do it again with him one-on-one. No, you don't need to do it. So he came back, he was down 7 pounds. And he didn't remember anything we did, but he was on the bus. Now he's down 47 pounds now since October 30th is when we started that class. So all you got to do is be on the bus. Show up, get a seat, be in the room. Now, there's a bunch of other things. The very first thing that we have people do is we have you buy something new, 1 or 2 sizes smaller than you're currently wearing. And we have ask you to hang it on the outside of your closet, and you look at it every day. You hold it up in front of you. If it's a pair of pants, you put it around you, and you see how it fits, and you imagine yourself wearing that. Now, when Sheila started doing this, she found that if people did not do this step, they didn't do as well. Because what this step does is it programs in your destination. Now some people say, well, I want to be 10 sizes smaller, I want to be 4 sizes smaller. Well, it has to be believable. So if you said, I want to lose 50 pounds, maybe you could believe that, but probably you could believe 10 pounds easier. And so this has to be believable. How many people here have a GPS? Almost everybody. Well, not almost everybody. What happens to the GPS if you don't put a destination in it? What do you have?
Nothing.
Nothing. You have a map. It tells you where you're at. Now you don't need that to know where you're at. You just gotta look out the window. But this is like programming in the destination on your GPS. If you don't do it, you don't know where you're going, you don't know when you get there, you don't know where the little bumps are along the way. So this is a very important part of this. Now it doesn't have to be something expensive. It can be just a t-shirt or a shirt or a nice pair of pants. You don't have to spend a lot of money on this. But it is very important because that puts in the destination. And we have lots of people who come back to review and they're wearing the piece of clothing that was hanging on the closet door. So that's kind of cool. And we have a saying that, when you go as far as you can see, and when you get there, guess what? You can see a little further. So this is a step-by-step, gradual process.
What if your whole wardrobe is 1 or 2 sizes small?
Well, actually, this step is really important that it be something new, not something that you've grown out of. This has to be something new because you've already been there. That's a destination that you've long passed, you know, it's in the rear view mirror. So you can go back and wear those clothes,
It'd be
but
nice.
the new one for this process needs to be something that you haven't used or worn before. Now, we will supply you with a support CD, and we ask that you listen to it at least once a day, and usually before the evening meal. Now, this doesn't work for everybody because some people work afternoons or have an odd shift or something, but the majority of people have trouble. Often they don't eat breakfast, they eat very little for lunch, and about 4 o'clock their brain is starved and they start screaming for food, and they'll graze the rest of the night. So the idea is to use this support CD. It takes about 20 minutes to listen to it, sometime late afternoon or evening before your evening meal, so that you have this program fresh in your mind, so that you feel full and you maintain that throughout the rest of the evening. Now, if you have time, we suggest you listen a second time each morning. But you don't have to do that, that's just recommended. But it's very important that you listen to it at least once a day, because we'll go through a hypnosis programming in the class, and then each day you want to reinforce that. And then the next week we'll do a different program in the class. The CD will stay the same, but it'll be reinforcement for what you're doing.
How long is the duration of the CD?
About 20 minutes. All right, the next step is we want you to eat slowly and consciously, and part of the programming will be that you put your utensil down between each bite, or if you're eating a sandwich, that you put it down between each bite. 'Cause a lot of times we're sitting there in that sandwich and we chomp, 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 and then we go chomp, 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 and you know, we wolf down a hamburger in about 10 seconds. This teaches you to eat slowly, consciously, and enjoy that food. We had gone out for dinner with Dave, and it was funny to watch him because it took him about 20 minutes to eat this half a sandwich, and he's just smiling and enjoying every bite. It was really very interesting to watch. So the whole idea is that small portion of food becomes more enjoyable because you're spending time and you're thinking about it and thinking about how good you're going to look, and that whole process becomes a different kind of a program in your head. And you learn how to stop eating as soon as you feel comfortable. So you go from hungry to comfortable, and you skip those other steps because they're not needed. Eat only 3 small meals a day. Now, once in a while people have low blood sugar and they need to have a little snack in between, and that's fine. You're only trying to eliminate out of your total daily intake 200, 300, 400 calories, depending on how much weight you want to lose in a year. This is important to understand. This is a process. It is not an overnight thing. It is not a quick fix, but it works over a period of time. And you want to think about where you're going to be in 6 months. If you do nothing, you're going to be right where you are today in 6 months. If you do something like this, you got a really good chance you're going to be a lot smaller. And we also want people to use a vitamin, a multiple vitamin and mineral supplement, and that can be anything from 1 a day to a good natural vitamin. It's entirely up to you what you do, but that's one of the recommendations. And then we want everybody to drink plenty of water, and non-chlorinated water. And this is really important. Chlorine and iodine are very closely related chemically. They're in a family called halogens: chlorine, iodine, and bromine. And what can happen is chlorine can sit in the iodine receptor on our cells because it's so closely related chemically. And so there are frequently people walking around who are clinically hypothyroid even though their blood work is normal. So you have a TSH or you have a free T4 and blood work on an annual physical, and it's normal, but yet you can be clinically hypothyroid, meaning your body is not able to utilize the thyroxine that's being made. It's kind of like type 2 diabetes. You make plenty of insulin, but your body can't use it. Same thing happens with this thyroid resistance. And much of it is related to the intake of chlorine.
Does a Brita filter get rid of the chlorine?
I cannot answer that question. I don't know about Brita. Some like the reverse osmosis does, but I don't know about those filters. Now, we want you to do exercise, and our goal, and what our program is that you'll exercise 30 minutes. Now, most people look at this and go, there's no way I am going to be able to do that. Well, first starting out, that's fine. You do 2 minutes a day. You just need to do something. And for some people, because of pain or other kind of issues, they literally cannot. So lay in your bed and do some stretching exercises. Do some weightlifting while you're watching a movie. Just grab a couple of jars of peanut butter or a couple of little dumbbells and start building some muscle. So there's 3 kind of exercises: strengthening, stretching, and aerobic. So when we think of exercise, we all think of, the guy running down the highway, skinny little guy who's running 10 miles a day. That's not what we have in mind here. We have in mind some aerobic exercise that's going to get your heart rate up, and some stretching and some strengthening, and doing it very slowly and very gradually. 2 to 5 minutes a day to start, but with a goal in mind of 30 minutes per day. So it's the same as your weight goal. If you have a 50-pound weight loss in mind, but you want to focus on that first 10 or 15 pounds, because when you get there, then you can see further. Same with the exercise. People go out and they try to run 20 minutes. The next day they're half dead, and they don't want to do any more exercise because they hurt so much. So you don't have to hurt yourself. You do what you can, and then you work up a little more. And then the last thing is sleep. Some people eat excessively because they are fatigued. And we eat sweets, it gives us a little bump of energy. Often it makes us tired again. We eat a little more, get a little bump, and often we do this all day long. We often do this with stimulants, with coffee, tobacco, tea, cokes, things like that. And what those foods do is they give us what's called adrenal fatigue. They force production of adrenaline, and after a while your adrenals are just about maxed out. They can't produce anymore because we pushed them so hard because we're not getting enough sleep and we're doing these artificial stimulants. Now, we don't really have a problem if you drink coffee or you have a little bit of stimulant, but some people do 20, 30 cups a day, or 6 Diet Cokes, or 6 regular Cokes. I mean, it's amazing what people put in their bodies. Sleeping between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. is ideal. If you look at how people lived 7,000, 8,000 years ago, when our genetics were getting programmed, in the winter they slept from dusk to dawn, so dark to dark. And that's actually why some people get depressed in the winter. It's just we're mammals, and many mammals hibernate. And in the temperate climates like this, humans hibernated essentially in the wintertime. They would store food, they would fatten up all summer, and then they would sleep most of the winter. Now we do that opposite, but that's why many people feel depressed. It's actually this old program kicking in, trying to get us to sleep more. Now your sleep doesn't have to be all in one chunk. It can be divided, and you can actually do power naps, 10 or 15 minute power naps, to ensure that you're actually getting enough alpha time. So why hypnosis? Well, I said this before. We all really know what to do, but something holds us back. And there's a nice little saying from Leo Buscaglia: to know and not to do is not to know. It's kind of like a saying I heard the other day: if you don't read, you're no better off than a person who can't read. If we know what to do, but we don't do it, then basically we don't know it. So there's 6 important things that we like to look at: what you eat, what you drink, your exercise, your sleep, how you breathe, and how you think. Our focus is on how we think, because that literally determines how we do all of these other things. So, anytime we change something, there's 4 steps. The first step is unconscious incompetence. Now what that means is you don't know, and you don't know that you don't know. So before you came here, or before you heard about this, you didn't know, and you didn't know there was something like this. So now that you know, you're at conscious incompetence, which means you're still practicing the old behaviors, but you know that you're doing it incorrectly. So our goal is to move people from here to here, where we're doing conscious competence. You're doing it correctly. You got to think about it a little bit, and eventually move to unconscious competence, where you're doing it automatically. Now, if you talk to some of these skinny little men or skinny little women, they don't think about eating. They don't think about food. You know, it's unconscious. It's out of. They just do it. Well, this is the objective here: is to move from incompetence to competence, where we can do it automatically and don't even think about it. And lots of people that have been through the class, they'll say, you know, it was really amazing. I automatically put my spoon down. I automatically put the sandwich down. I wasn't even thinking about it. And they chewed 20 or 30 times instead of 3 chomps and swallowed. So these things begin to happen even during the 4 weeks of the class, that you begin to see yourself doing things more automatically. Any questions about that process? We all have intentions, and we have what are called counter intentions. Now the counter intentions come from these old programs that are locked in our system. So we say, I'm going to begin to exercise. I'm going to begin a dietary program. And as soon as we say that, some other little thought comes in our head. That's called the counter intention. And often that counter intention becomes so strong that we go back to the way it was before. So the idea is to overcome or replace those intentions. They're always going to be there. We replace the counter intentions with stronger intentions. And we can program those in stronger with hypnosis than we can just in our outer conscious thinking. So again, that question, why hypnosis? Well, we know what to do. Something drives us back. And hypnosis helps us change our automatic thinking. And it makes it easier. I didn't say easy, easier. It's really important to understand that this is a process. This is a change in your thinking. You still have to make that decision. But making that decision to eat that food or not eat that food will be easier than it was before. And you will be more aware, more conscious. Instead of just automatically selecting a certain thing, you will do it more consciously. So, by a show of hands, how many people think this could work for them? Most everybody. Good. So, what does this cost? That's the big question everybody has. The question I always ask is, what would it be worth? And what does it cost you not to do this? Not to do something. So, the individual sessions, if you come and sit with me individually for 4 weeks, it's $995. If you come to the group, it's like we're sitting here, $495, and couples is $745. Now some people, after they fall off their chair and get back up, they say, wow, that's a lot of money. What Sheila found was she started at $200. She now charges $1,500. And what she found was that people do much better when they are more invested. It's kind of like if you went to Walmart and you bought a $5 t-shirt. or you went someplace and you bought a $500 suit. Now, what would you think if you came home and your dog was laying on your t-shirt? Nah, not too much. But if the dog was laying on your $500 suit, you'd be pretty upset, right? So it's really about value. And this is valuable because it works. If it didn't work, we wouldn't be able to do this. We wouldn't be able to keep this process moving the way it does. So what do you get for that? Well, you get to be the size and shape you choose. And all you have to do is stay on the bus. You got to use the process. The process works. You have to use it. You get 4 sessions, and you get a support CD, you get a workbook, and then what we've added is you can attend any group free for as long as you want. So the other support process, in addition to the CD, is that if you want to come back and repeat, you can do that anytime. And like tonight after this session at 8 o'clock, there'll be some graduates who come in and we do a little support session. Some of them come once during the next class, or they might skip a month and then come in. We try to run these every 1 or 2 months, but this is a very valuable thing because things happen. And you may do really well, and a year from now, you've slipped back into some old behaviors and you need a tune-up. So you can come back at no charge. So that's a really valuable little piece. So what's next? The question you have to ask is, are you going to go on the trip? You're going to get a seat on the bus. I'll drive. I'll get you there. You just have to buy a ticket. Now, if you want to do this, we limit our class to 12. $100 deposit will hold a place for you. And we need to have payment by the first day of class. Now that's next week on Wednesday the 20th is when we're going to start the next session. Some people have HSAs and flexible spending accounts, and they've been able to use those accounts to pay for it. Insurances won't pay for this program. They should, but they won't. And we do have a payment program, but it's paid